The Global Competitiveness Index's annual reports offer useful insight into the key areas where countries must act if they are to optimize the productivity that will determine their economic future. This year, Botswana moved up 5 places in global competitiveness rankings to 74th out of 148 economies worldwide. It is now the 4th most competitive country in Africa, following Mauritius, South Africa and Rwanda. To get a comprehensive understanding as to our strengths, weaknesses and areas of opportunity in the area of global competitiveness, we speak to Mr. Baeti Molake, Executive Director at the Botswana National Productivity Centre, who were contributors to the said 2013-2014 WEC Global Competitiveness Report. Welcome to First Issues. Welcome back to First Issues. The Global Competitiveness Report of the World Economic Forum defines competitiveness as the set of institutions, policies and factors that affect the levels of productivity of a country. Mr. Molake begins our conversation by summing up the factors at play in our environment. A lot has been written and referenced with regards to the WEC Global Competitiveness Report. Do we fully understand what we mean by competitiveness? What factors go into the rankings and gauging a country's level of productivity and competitiveness?
I do think that a lot of people do understand what competitiveness is about, and also maybe also understand what it will take for the country to be competitive. There are, with regards to the Global Competitiveness Report or the Global Competitiveness Index, there are about 12 pillars. These would include things like the first pillar being institutions, the second pillar being infrastructure. You look at such things as macroeconomic environment. You look at good market efficiency, labor market efficiency. You look at the financial institutions. You also look at the market size of the economy. And ultimately, you look at innovation and business sophistication. So these are some of the elements that are looked into in computing the Global Competitiveness Index.
One of the more curious things from the rankings was that we were placed 4th, coming in after countries like South Africa and Rwanda. How is it that Rwanda could be getting the better of us, to put it more simply?
We should remember that this is an index, and in an index you compute the score for each country. And overall, Rwanda has a better index than us. We must bear in mind that you look at several things that constitute the index. For our country, we're doing very well in the institutions and the macroeconomic environment. But we seem to be still lacking in areas such as business sophistication, innovation, good market efficiency, and possibly even in the infrastructure. Again, we're not doing particularly well in areas of education and training. You look at things like health and primary education, as well as higher education and training. Those are the areas where some countries like Rwanda might be faring far much better than ourselves.
Innovation and sophistication, what exactly are we talking about when we speak about those terms?
Business sophistication and innovation, it's more about how you leverage technologies that are in existence in your business processes to facilitate how you do business. We also look at how you use the different technologies on a day-to-day basis. And you know, if you take a country like Rwanda, they really exploit and leverage information technology, something that I think as a country we're not doing particularly well in.
Which are the areas of concern for Botswana with regards to competitiveness?
First of all, let's look at where we're doing well. I think we're doing well, and consistently so, in institutions. We're doing very well this time around on macroeconomic environment, where in the previous year, that's the 2012-2013, we are ranked 81, and this time around We are ranked 24 in the macroeconomic environment. And this comes as a result of the decision that was made by government that they were going to go for a balanced budget. And just because of that, our ranking in that particular pillar just shot up. So we did well in that area. Where we're not doing well, like we said, it's in the, I would want to say it's in the human resource related areas, such as health and primary education, higher education and training, and again, in leveraging ICT. So for me, those are the areas where we're lagging behind, and that's why it would appear to be underperforming compared to countries like South Africa and Rwanda.
What is to be done about these challenges in the human resource area?
Human resource area needs a concerted effort by all stakeholders. I think we've all recognized that we have a role to play, each one of us, be it government, be it the private sector, be it the non-governmental organizations, be it individuals. We all have to realize that for us to become competitive as an economy, we all have to contribute. Each one of us has to play a role.
One of the areas that was really publicized from the Competitiveness report, an area of weakness, was a lack of work ethic in the national labor force. What is it that the BNPC, being an institution set up for areas specifically like this, is doing to counteract this weak work ethic?
What we started with as the BNPC was sort of to sensitize, first of all, the stakeholders that indeed poor work ethic seemed to be a problem. And like I said earlier, work ethic, it's a human resource element. And there are other elements that have been surfaced by the report, such as inadequately educated workforce, such as inefficient government bureaucracy. These relate to how we conduct ourselves in the workplace as a workforce. And as the BNPC, we've engaged the stakeholders, our stakeholders, and have been very lucky that government agreed to sponsor a project that we had proposed to try and address the concerns around work ethic. So we have this project that we are currently implementing with that hopefully will address the poor work ethic. I must hasten to indicate that quite often when we talk about poor work ethic, a lot of us tend to think it's a problem that concerns people in employment. Whereas for us, work ethic is more of an attitude towards how we conduct ourselves as a people. So when it says poor work ethic, we must look at a national level and begin to look at things that each one of us do, the attitudes that we bring into work, how we go about doing work at home. Do we get our kids to know that it is important that you turn up for assignments, that you submit your assignments on time and stuff like that? So like I said, we're doing a project, we're implementing a project that is government funded. And this project will take a period of 3 years to implement.
You mentioned that one of our weaknesses is an inadequately educated workforce. Which factors or which facts informed this gauge?
There is a lot of complaint from the private sector that the graduates from our training institutions do not have the requisite skills. But if you look at the competitiveness report, you'd find that the quality of education, we are ranked quite highly in the quality of education. I think the missing element is the training. And I think the challenge might be how involved the private sector is in our training processes. Do they provide opportunities for learners, for trainees to practice what they've been taught in these schools before they complete their studies? I mean, there are countries out there that do a very good job of this. If you take a country like Germany, for example, currently the youth unemployment in Germany is 7%, whereas next door in Spain and other countries is around 20-25%, up to 29%. Ask yourself why. The Germans have a very good apprenticeship program, whereas these other countries don't have. And I think even in Botswana, we don't have an apprenticeship program. So trainees go through their tertiary education, they finish before they go and practice. So it would be for the private sector to collaborate with training institutions to provide opportunities for learners to practice before they go they join the workforce.
In part 2 of this evening's program, we follow up on a business idea that generated a lot of feedback from our viewers on Facebook and Twitter a few weeks ago. An idea by a couple of entrepreneurs to sell donkey as an alternative food source is one that the director of the Meat Industry Training Institute, recognized by SADC as a center of excellence, endorses as a potentially lucrative business venture. Join us after the break to hear his findings. A few weeks ago, we spoke to 2 entrepreneurs eager to establish businesses selling donkey meat to Botswana. In an effort to test the viability of this idea, we sought the expert opinion of Professor Aganga, the director of the Meat Industry Training Institute, and found that the demand may be bigger than a local demand. To begin, we inquired as to whether donkey meat was the healthy alternative our entrepreneurs touted it as.
Yes, I do concur with them. Donkey meat is very good for the body. It's got quite a lot of nutrients that humans will benefit from. The protein content is quite high. The fat is quite adequate for humans. Magnesium, calcium, most of the minerals, ions and salts are quite adequate in donkey meat. And I'm just so surprised that people are not banking on this and capitalizing on this source, which is all over the country.
How does it compare to meats we're more familiar with, like chicken, fish, or beef?
Donkey meat is low in cholesterol compared to many other meat products here. And it's quite tender. Palatability is quite adequate. As long as people remove that bias they tend to have against donkeys because they see them along the roadsides, donkey meat is a delicacy, especially outside this country. In Europe, it's a delicacy. In the US, it's a delicacy. And that's why many people want donkey meat from Botswana.
We did a brief survey of Botswana on donkey meat and its products, and some were of the view that donkey milk has healing properties. How accurate is this view?
I cannot indicate anything about healing properties, but one thing I can tell you for sure, scientifically, donkey milk is the nearest and closest in terms of composition and properties to human milk. That I can guarantee you. It has been proven scientifically.
For someone interested in venturing into producing donkey meat for consumption, is there any difference at all in the chain of production from rearing all the way to consumers' plates and fridges that is different from more traditional meats like beef? Is there any part in that process that is different at all?
There is basically no difference. The way you prepare goats, sheep, cattle is exactly the same way you prepare for donkeys. Even horses, even if we have horses to slaughter here, is basically the same approach. The only thing that we need to do, just like they've done now for poultry or for beef where they talk of halal or no halal, is to clearly mark out at the shelves, this is donkey meat, this is beef, that is mutton, and whatever it is, so that the consumer is not deceived. The consumer gets to know what exactly he's paying for. It's basically the same approach in terms of processing, slaughtering, stoning, packaging, freezing is basically the same thing. There is no difference.
Would we be pioneering this venture, or are there more established donkey meat industries that we can benchmark with in other countries?
I want to assure you, in Europe, very well established ones in Italy, but near home here, South Africa, slaughter a lot of donkeys. They actually are even looking for donkeys, live donkeys from Botswana. They made approaches to the department. They want to import about 400 donkeys every month from Botswana. Fortunately, we have not agreed to this because they use these in preparing other meat products such as salamis, which they eventually export to us here. So virtually many of us have been eating donkey meat, probably without realizing that we've been eating donkey meat all along.
We may have just gotten clued up on donkey meat as a potential area of interest, but our guest began research on the venture over a decade ago and is considered the go-to guy on the subject as a result. He gives us a detailed account of his work in the area.
Way back in 2001, we had some business people that came all the way from Belgium to come and explore the possibility of processing donkeys in Botswana and exporting the meat to Europe. They procured 15 donkeys from Veda, slaughtered them at the training abattoir in Lobase here, and they took pieces of meat of various cuts to Europe and to Japan, and we got a feedback from them, and which was quite interesting. The feedback was that the quality of donkey meat from Botswana is about the best that they've encountered, and they were very, very keen. And so they approached our Department of Veterinary Services, on how to put the process in place. The Director of Veterinary Services then set up a task team that I was privileged to chair to work on the modalities of getting EU approval. So many efforts went into this, so much work went into this. The European Union gave us specifications as to what needs to be done, and the department complied almost completely with all these requirements. One of them, for instance, is testing for trichinella. It's a nematode, it's a parasite worm. And to do this, the department had to liaise with BDF that normally slaughters donkeys to feed lions in their barrack, to collect donkey meat samples to be able to analyze this in the lab. So much effort had gone into this, and surprisingly, things have still not taken off. Why? We just don't know. It looks like some business people seem not to see the business potential, the profit in this venture. And so I just hope that someday, soon, somebody will take this up.
With such positive findings, what were the challenges to the establishment of this industry?
The biggest challenge is where to slaughter donkeys. Those that came from Belgium wanted to slaughter using facilities around Gaborone so that it would reduce the overhead cost. But the option they had then was to use the then closed BMC abattoir in Maun, and they considered this as way off because the profit margin would reduce considerably considering the transportation costs. They made approaches to various other slaughter facilities around Gaborone, but they were rejected. The main excuse was that if you slaughter donkeys in these abattoirs, our customers would no longer want to slaughter in this abattoir. And so that has been the major challenge. And I think the solution to this is very simple. A dedicated donkey abattoir needs to be set up as a regional slaughter facility, not too far away from where you get majority of the donkeys. We have lots and lots of donkeys in the southeast part of this country, and you see them all over the road. This is an area where we can capture. And so setting up a regional slaughter facility, just like we have a regional poultry facility in Mahalapye and in Kanye, there could be one located in a strategic location to tap on that natural resource that we have around us here.
For the entrepreneur whose interest has been significantly piqued, what would they need to do to get this industry going?
All that it needs, the logistics from the government side are all in place. All that they need is to have a business person or business people who are interested. And if they approach the Department of Veterinary Services, all the assistance is available.
To conclude our conversation, the professor had a final word of encouragement to potential investors.
Please come out. We want donkey meat. We are eating donkey meat. We cannot pretend that we are not eating donkey meat. It's palatable, delicious, low cholesterol, the milk, top quality. Let us harvest our natural resource. Eating habit pushes aside. People are eating donkey meat even though they pretend as if they are not eating it, but I can guarantee you it's top quality meat. Go for Botswana donkey meat. It's well valued in Europe.
It is now time for the stock market review of this past week, courtesy of Thapelo Tseole of the Botswana Stock Exchange.
In reviewing the performance of the Botswana Stock Exchange in the last week, we realized that the domestic company index have actually risen by about 0.2%. for the past week, and this brings the performance of the DCI to about 14.4% since the beginning of this year. And this is a very good performance compared to last year, the same period, when the DCI reached an increase of about 5.6%. When we look at the FCI, it has actually risen by a marginal percentage of 0.03%. Compared to last year, the same period for the year, it was about 2.5%. And when we look at trading for last week, total value of shares traded was about 40 million, and this translates into about 10 million worth of shares traded every day last week. And on a year-to-date basis, we realized that the total number of shares traded is about 1.4 billion worth of shares, compared to last year the same time, which was about less than $500 million. And on everyday basis is about 7.6 million shares traded every day.
For both our competitiveness rankings or any new venture to succeed, we need the labor force to cross the line between inaction to action. We leave you with this thought tonight.
If we are to be competitive and successful as an economy, each one of us has to play their part. You cannot leave it to one organization or one sector and hope that we'll be competitive. I think we have to appreciate that what the government does only provides a context for competitiveness. Real competitiveness takes place at private sector or enterprise or firm level. It is when our firms, our companies are competitive that the economy will be competitive. So we can shout as much as we want and ask government to do this and that, they can do that, but ultimately the competitiveness of the country depends on what we do, one as individuals and two as companies.
From me, Nameto Sibina, the team behind First Issues, and our sponsors First National Bank, have a productive week.